Joining me now to discuss the latest media developments and how it ties into the upcoming election is Liz Harrington, the national spokesperson for the RNC. So Liz, when we look at the media, it's something that you and I have talked about pretty extensively, but I think that it's something too that the average American doesn't always tune into as religiously as some people in our political circles, if you will. They, of course, have their own jobs to do. They have this crises that they're dealing with on multiple fronts, whether it's coronavirus, whether it's the economy. But when we talk about the media, how important is it going into an election year when there is bias against one candidate?
Well, we need a free and fair press in this country. That's why it was in the First Amendment. That's what our founders really were depending on. We need rigorous debate. We need open debate. But more and more often, we have a mainstream press that just outright lies about the objective facts on the ground. They're not reporting accurately on what the president himself says. You watch that speech that the president delivered in front of Mount Rushmore. There was nothing dark or divisive about it. And yet you have Joe Biden, who can come out and tell an activist, yes, we're going to defund the police. The police are becoming the enemy. Nobody called that dark and divisive. And so more and more people are figuring out that the mainstream media is not an unbiased actor here. They are clearly in the camp for the Democrats, and they're going to do whatever they can to try to prop up Joe Biden and go after this president. But the good news is the American people are smart and they have common sense and they can see it for themselves. And we can show them just the complete 180 they go about, saying that peaceful protesters who were crying out to their government and saying, let me open up my salon, let me go to church, let me provide for my families, were derided as ugly and killers because they were going to spread the coronavirus. Those same media members then propped up these protests that turned into riots where many people lost their lives, lost their livelihoods, lost their small businesses. And yet there was a completely different reaction from the media. So the bias is so intense that I think it actually works against them in showing the American people that may have been persuaded, may have been open to the Democrat argument, are now saying, wait a minute, why are they lying about things that I can see with my own eyes? There's something else going on here.
And that last point is important, something that they can see with their own eyes, because now with social media, you can see criticisms of a clip seconds, if not minutes after it's posted, and get the full story, or at least an analysis on what happened. The media, for example, used to talk a one-way street. It used to be you turn on your television, and then whatever they say, that was the narrative. Now there's pushback, and we even see it against some journalists too in this whole new cancel culture thing. We all saw that that letter at Harper's magazine where some journalists were saying we don't want to be part of cancel culture because they are feeling some of the heat themselves. But I've heard this from conservatives too, whether it be Tucker Carlson on Fox News or Michael Knowles on the Daily Wire. They say that if there's one thing that President Trump has been effective at, it's highlighting this very bias, and it's something that is irreparable. Now people move forward, they see this bias, they acknowledge this bias, and it's something that the media is now going to have to deal with even after President Trump. Do you think that's right?
Well, it is so crystallizing. You can just see it. And we always knew the media was biased, but were they this strong in their vendetta against a man? It's almost hysterical. They're blinded by rage, and they've become so far left in just their hatred of their own country that they're reporting on. It's very troubling. But I would also point, look, it's all about power and control. They want to control what information you get. That's why there's this big boycott movement for Facebook, just for allowing political speech, First Amendment rights to appear on their platform if it's coming from President Trump's campaign. Notice how they're trying to boycott Tucker Carlson's show, and any strong voice that's dissenting from this radical left-wing anti-American mob, they go after. They want to defund and deplatform. Well, it's more important than ever for all of us to vote with our pocketbooks, to vote in November and stand up for freedom of speech. And, that letter, I was encouraged, even if it's come a little bit late, from some of these left-wing writers, but some of these people have figured out that the mob doesn't stop with conservatives. It comes for everyone. And The second you're not expedient anymore, like Joe Biden, the second he'll be canceled as well. I mean, he's bragging. He's the one who bragged about getting awards from George Wallace and being from a slave state. So the cancel culture, it's totally incoherent, but it's all about control and it's all about power. And it's very important for the American people to embrace our founding fundamental freedoms of freedom of speech and speak out against this, because it will come for everyone and it's fundamentally anti-American.
Even when you talk to a lot of progressives, they don't look at former President Barack Obama as the beacon of the Democratic Party, as some people may think. They even think that he didn't go far enough on a lot of issues. I wouldn't say they're going as far to cancel him, but by no means is he the pinnacle of the Democratic Party that some people would have you believe. And when we talk about the media and what's happening in our newsrooms, even Ben Smith at the New York Times, he recently wrote an op-ed that was kind of talking about what's happening at the Washington Post, where Marty Baron, the editor-in-chief there, wants to take a more objective approach, but he's getting pushback from some individuals in his own newsroom who want to take a more subjective approach. They want to infuse their opinion a little bit and infuse their principles and values into how they should be covering the stories. I think it's something that we do need to pay more attention to, because these arbiters of truth and relayers of information, if you will, also are coming with their own bias. And I think it's something that we all have to start looking out for a little bit more so. But Liz Harrington, it's always a pleasure having you on. Thanks for joining us tonight.